My F5 Local Traffic Manager, some administrative maintenance concepts. Again, some admin type functions, but things that will make more of a difference on a day-to-day operation or what I need to get into to help me with my day-to-day operations. Just when you think it's safe to get back into the water, we got more stuff about how to, well, spend your day, how to do things. Anyway, some additional maintenance stuff that we may end up doing, it really kind of has to do with the operations, if you will, of our ADC. So, packet filtering, system logging, and S&MP management. Again, kind of those things that you may end up doing time and time again, or may at least revisit every once in a while. We need to be aware of some of the specifics with it for what it's going to bring up, what we need to think about, or where it's going to look at. So packet filtering is certainly a tool that we can use to control access, not just to and from the ADC, but at least stuff that goes through it or not. Things that we want to filter from here to there. Now, keep in mind the effect. Anytime you do a packet filter, it's going to affect all traffic. So it's going to affect our clients and users in there. It's going to affect any admin stuff that we happen to be doing. The only thing that's not affected by it is the management port. So any packet filter that we're going to do on there, any transit interface, that's going to affect. So we kind of have to be paying attention to what we're configuring and how we're configuring for it. Now, the default behavior on there is actually to allow anything through, unless you're going to put a specific restriction on it. So a filter is just that. It's going to be a restrict. So default allow. Now, an interesting thing that I want to kind of point out with this is by default, this is called a negative security model. And the naming kind of seems a little bit bass-ackwards for stuff because you're really not being negative, but what you're putting on there is negative. So you're only telling me the things that you don't want to occur, but otherwise everything else could be in there. So by contrast, a positive security model is really what other vendors happen to do, which is the default deny. So that if everything gets through your filters and is not specifically permitted, their reaction is to deny stuff. So we'll say deny all. But here in the F5 world, we are a negative security model, which is going to be a permit all, unless otherwise mentioned in there. So we can put filters in. When we do filters and stuff like that, you're going to have actions that we can do. We can do an accept. We can do a discard. We can do a reject and continue. So those are the four actions that we're going to have. Accept should be fairly obvious what it's going to do. The reject and the discard really kind of both do the same thing in that they'll kill traffic. The reject on one side sends a notice about it. So whether it be an ICMP or a TCP close or whatever it's going to be on there, depending on the specific protocol we're talking about, there will be some notification of, thank you for playing, but you can't get there from here. Discard, on the other hand, is going to be quiet about it. Some of our other network vendors, we do see similar wording and similar actions. So depending on what background you're coming from, this really may not be a surprise on there. Continue is kind of an interesting one. In an interface-based scenario, it really doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Now, on the other hand, my packet filters can be used on an interface or in iRules. So iRules, we have talked about in another nugget, is really kind of my programming language, if you will, for rules on packet forwarding. So once I get in here and start creating a hierarchical structure or a programmatic structure for my forwarding rules, then it may make much more sense to have a continue function, because I can do other options like log something or change something in the packet but still continue and go ahead and do something else later on with it. So that may be very important to us as far as where we're looking at in the iRules, not necessarily as much on an interface basis. Another thing to consider with packet filters, very much like we have from access lists from other vendors, is order is important. Now, not necessarily the order that you type them in, because they may be in your configuration file completely out of order, but there is an order number, kind of like a sequence number that goes along with it. And those will be done in order of the sequence that you put on there. And you may rearrange the sequence, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but keep in mind that's the part that really is the important function as far as what the filters are done. So as we get in here, just kind of know that we have these packet filters available to us. It's right there on network menu, so it kind of gives us all those controls. We'll see that here in just a little bit. But we have the ability of affecting the flow of traffic through our ADC. So daily basis, application basis, protection basis, whatever need that you have, it may very well be part of your administration is to secure your devices in there. Now, next, beyond that, so other fun things that we got going on. Okay, we got logging. Logs. I think there was a toy about that. I have to find that someplace.
What rolls downstairs, from motor and pairs, rolls over your neighbor's dog? What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's log. It's log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log. It's better than that, it's good.
But in any event, when we get to my thought about logging, some of the things that we have in here, there's a whole lot of logging that goes on inside my ADC. And, good thing is it's talkative, helps me define a lot, helps me troubleshoot a lot, helps me discover exactly what's happening, so there's really no gray area as far as what the box is actually doing. Remember, network devices tend to do exactly what we tell them to. Might not be what we want, but they do exactly what we tell them to. So, things that we have going on here. It does keep daily logs, so it rotates logs daily. So we'll call it a daily rotation. And in addition to the current day, we archive 8 days. So you have a little over a week at that point in time. So I guess total 9 days if you count the current day on there. But we have a lot of information that will be available to us. All of this stuff will show up in the var/log directory. So a very common place where on any Unix system we're going to find those things. And realistically out of that, so we kind of use a different color here, I have messages, which again, standard for Unix. That's where my system stuff is going to show up. I have an LTM, which is where my local traffic manager and iControl information will show up. I have an EM, which is my enterprise manager. A GTM, which is my global traffic manager, an ASM, which is my application security manager, and I have a packet filter. So PKT filter, which will log anything that I'm doing with my packet filters over here. So those types of logs are going to exist and be around for me. This is local on my ADC, which means that I'll need to get into the shell to actually look at the stuff and kind of go through there in detail. On the other hand, I can set up syslog. Syslog will go out to a server someplace, put it over here, wherever we're going to stick it, but wherever it happens to be. You've got a centralized logging server that most likely brings in logs from more than one device and allows you to kind of go through it. One of the interesting things that we have with syslog and kind of how it operates on a normal basis is something called facility. That's kind of I guess a way of separating things out. It's a way of making things different in there. And you've got lots of different ones built in. And again, this is standard for any Unix type stuff. But what we're going to have in our little world here is 8 different logs. So we have local 0, local 1, local 2. I'll go ahead and write all these out here. And very much like what we get into with my different log files over here locally, I will separate out what message goes where based on my facility. So this is going to be my LTM. This will be my Enterprise Manager. This will be my GTM. This will be the ASM. This is iControl. Let's see, 5 is my packet filter. 6 is going to be a web or SSL. So basically my GUI administration stuff, any errors or things that occur in there. And 7 is a system boot. Okay. Which in addition down here there's a boot.log, which is the same thing as what this will be. But I get all of that information that can be sent out to a syslog server someplace else. By the way, I have to do that if you want to set up your syslog server. That is a TMSH command. Okay, so what I'll have to do is do a modify / system or sys syslog remote-server, and then add host. And then put either the IP address or the host name there, whichever it's going to be reachable by. But that's how I'll go ahead and put that in from a TMSH standpoint, and that gets me my logging capabilities to a centralized network device. That's probably a good idea, by the way, to do that. There's a lot of cool tools that exist in the real world as far as being able to get into a syslog server, search on things, correlate them, bring them together, more so than going through here. I mean, I can certainly go out command line wise and grep through my logs that are on the Unix system. Kind of boring, kind of tedious, really not a whole hell of a lot of fun, but it is workable. I go out here to my syslog servers. You got Kiwi Syslog, you got SolarWinds, you got a whole bunch of them that are out there. You got bigger ones like Splunk, but you got lots of different things that are available, specific tools to help me out. Utilize those on your larger deployments and larger things going on to help you administer day by day. That will make your life significantly easier. But in the meantime, know about these concepts and how the general setup is, both from an administration point of view and from your exam point of view. You're going to want to know about those things. Okay, last but not least, clear that off, I have my wonderful world of SNMP management. Okay, so this is how I'm going to manage things from really another device. Okay, so SNMP is Simple Network Management Protocol. Allow the ADC to be managed from my network management server. So I'll put an NM over here, you know, wherever that's going to be at. I can do two different things. So I can do what we call get-based management, which is, goes via a MIB, which, by the way, are all contained on the ADC. I'll tell you the directory in just a second. But my network management servers will pull. They'll send GET requests to the ADC. As long as you got SNMP enabled, that would be very helpful. That is UDP 161 that those requests come in on, as far as that traffic goes. Or I can set up traps. Okay, traps are really done where the ADC, you've programmed in thresholds over here, so your network management station really doesn't do anything, doesn't send anything out or disturb anything. Only if something's going bad according to what you set up. I cross a threshold on here, my CPU for an example. CPU gets too high. I will send out a trap over here. Alright, so traps are UDP 162, just in case you care. But they'll get sent out and kind of, notify my network management station at that point in time. All of my MIB files are located, let's see, where are the USR share directory / SNMP / MIB. So kind of catchy, but the USR share directory in there as far as where that goes. When I do set things up, and it's kind of important to know my different versions. Okay, so V1 of SNMP is clear text. So completely clear, no passwords, no nothing else. I have V2C, which is clear but authenticated. So I'll put some auth on there. And I have V3, which is authenticated and encrypted, or can be anyway. My get-based stuff, I can do all three of those. My traps, there's really no authentication to it. I can do V1 or V2C. So those are the options that I have available during my configuration, and may be very important in there. Again, larger organization, if you have a specific management network nobody else is on, you probably don't care that much. This is a V, not a U. Anything where your traffic is going to traverse a network with other users, specifically ones you don't trust, I would try to do V3 wherever possible. So just know my options in there, know what we're capable of. The F5s, we got it going on, not going to be a problem with it. But that's going to be our administration stuff that you may end up doing to help you on a daily basis. Alright, some simple stuff on here. We talked about our packet filters and where to apply them, what kinds of things that we can do with it to affect traffic going through my ADC on there. We also talked about our logging. All the facilities, let's see, we had facilities 0 through 7, facility and file names, how many, how they rotated, how many there were, all that fun stuff that goes with it. I talked a little bit about the syslog as well. So I had our different versions of doing things in there. And last but not least, we talked about SNMP, both the get and trap methods of network management. And those are the things, again, that should help us out, or stuff that's good to know about, not just from a daily basis, but for our exam also. We got kind of a dual purpose going on here. But this way, you and I can be on the same page to know what we need to do or what we need help with, or how the system is going to help us do our jobs to administer it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.